Greetings and salutations, YouTube, and welcome back to another episode of Jay Fixes Stuff. As you can see, this week's project is a Murray Ultra 5 horsepower, 22-inch wide clearing swath snowblower. It is a compact model with a tiny little bucket, but these things can punch above their weight. They do pretty well. So let's take a quick look. I don't know much about this. The seller did say that it worked at the beginning of this year, and then he no longer could get it to work. So let's just take a quick look. Fuel smells actually really good, and it's probably 3/4 full, so we're good there. All right, let's check the oil. And on these, you have to screw the dipstick in order to check them. Ooh, that oil is dark. You can see that, but it's close to full, maybe 80%, so safe to test with. That spark plug boot actually looks new, so I'm guessing, yeah, it's definitely much newer than this engine. So it looks like it's been replaced at some point. So most likely that had a problem at some point with no spark and somebody swapped it out. So let's keep walking around, see what we can find out here. All right, that is loose, but it does work. Let's see if we're able to tighten it. All right, yep, it does work. Head control. Ooh, for a little guy, it has 6 speeds. That's interesting. And I don't know if it's working, but it appears to be moving nicely. Hopefully that's actually connected to something. All right, the auger control. It feels stiff, but it is working. Yep. So we can double check the adjustment on that later, but it appears to be working well. All right, in our drive or traction one, it's kind of sticking a little. Yeah, it is sticking. And also, looks like we need a cotter pin. There's some wire wrapped through this hole here, so that explains why it's sticking. All right, let's keep walking around this thing. All right, we do have a key, and the key is there. However, the carb box is hanging on by hopes and dreams, apparently. We're missing a couple of screws over here, so not great. Our choke does move, so that's good. All right, throttle control moves freely, so that's good. Purge bulb feels good. So we're checking a lot of boxes here. That's good. All right, what do you think? Discharge chute control? Hey, look at that. It actually moves nicely. Not bad. Oh, it appears to be plastic. That's probably why it's not all rusted up. All right, let's take a look at the auger and the bucket here. What? Let me see if I can get you in on this one. All right, check this out. I'll tilt this thing up so you can see it. We have big pine cones stuck in here and what looks like, I don't know, like mule tape? I don't know, there's weird stuff wrapped up in there. Very strange. But the good news is I see a shear pin there and I see a shear pin there. So we should not have to replace a shear pin, which is very nice. I was getting sick of doing that. We have more stuff wrapped up in here. Look at this. I don't know what that is. Wires? Let's hope they're not from this machine. All right, I think we are ready to try to start this thing. Let's give it a go here. All right, choke is all the way on. Fuel's all the way up. Give it 3 pumps. Ooh, compression feels good. All right, 1, 2, 3. Let's try without the choke. Oh no. Yeah. Okay, so that just added to the list of things that we're gonna need to try to fix. All right, well, let's get this inside and check it out. All right, so welcome back to the shop. Now, I'm not really sure where to get started because we have a few things that just really make me want to take care of them right away. But I guess we're gonna start with that recoil. So let's at least take a look and see what happened here. It might have just snapped, or we might have broken that spring inside, so. Okay, we're also missing a screw here. We're supposed to have 3 screws holding this on, and it looks like we only have 2. All right, let's see if I can get to this last one down here. We're gonna have to change gears here. All right, and as I pointed out outside, the gear setting, it changes really easily. So I'm hoping there's not a problem there. And by the way, I actually discovered another issue when I was bringing this back into the shop. When you try to move this thing, it acts as if it does not want to move. It's very difficult to move. So we're definitely gonna have to open up that bottom end and see what's going on. All right, so let's get this other screw. This is really hard to get to. Okay. All right, let's see how bad this is. Hey, I think the spring might still be okay. Very cool. All right, so this type of recoil is smaller than the normal ones. Usually each wind is roughly 1 foot of cord that you're gonna be pulling in. So in this case, it's a smaller one, so you don't really quite have that same ratio. So it might take more than 1 turn per foot of rope. So we'll have to check that out. And so one of the things you want to check out is turn it just to make sure the little paws, the dogs, come out, and they do, so that's good. That's still functional. And you want to rotate it like that and make sure that it still returns. So that means that your spring is still good. So in this case, it was just a matter of an old weak rope, as evidenced here in Exhibit A. All right, so you want to find the place where the rope actually comes through that outer disc. And then you line that up over here, and that's how you bring it in. So in this case, it would be like that. All right, so what we're gonna wanna do is get that old broken rope out of there. All right, so as it turns out, it was just that little piece right there. So we have removed that. All right, so now what we're gonna wanna do, on a generator, I usually do about 6 feet of rope to give yourself plenty of room. However, this is gonna be a little higher off the ground, closer to the person, and they're not gonna be pulling it quite as far. So I'm thinking closer to 5 feet. So maybe 5.5, 6 turns is probably gonna be what we're looking for roughly. All right, so let's start by lining this up. That's our hole right there, and we want it to be over there. And we're gonna turn it counterclockwise. So basically, that is where we're going to be our starting point. So let's try to do it 5 turns from there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So roughly right there is where we're going to be coming through. So we want to move it just a little bit over that way, and we're going to put a flathead screwdriver here to hold that in place through those little grates like that. So it holds it for us. All right, so let's take a look at the size of the original rope here. All right. And I usually stock a 1/3 size, like a 4 or 4.5, which would probably be just slightly too small for this. This is a 5, which is probably going to be our winner. This is a number 6, which is probably too large for this. Let's just take a look and see how these compare. All right, so those are actually very similar. So I think that number 5 will be fine. I really would have preferred to use like a 4, 4.5. but I believe that's fine. All right, so we're gonna want roughly 5 feet. All right, so let's see how this length compares here. Oh, just about perfect. I think I nailed it. All right, cool. All right, now there are 2 different ways you can do this. You can either come in from this way, then pull it in, and then try to snake it in through that way. I'm thinking it might be a little easier, you have a little more room here if we try to come in through that way and then go out that way. So let's try to do that initially. Holy cow, I think I finally got it. Wow, that was a huge pain in the butt. Yes. Outstanding. The trick on this one is to make sure that your melted tip is not too big, or else it's not going to get through the small spot. All right. See, it's much easier to get it through this way now. All right, and on this end, we need to tie off that knot. And I suck at tying knots, by the way. Also backing up trailers. Okay. Okay, that should hold. Oh, do I have to say the obligatory, that ain't going nowhere? All right, no, it can't go anywhere. Okay, and let's melt that again. Cool. All right, and now we're just gonna pull that through until we get to the knot. Down there. Just wanna tuck it in to make sure it's not gonna interfere with anything. All right, so let's get this other end through the handle. Get the old one out. All right, now we're gonna push this through the other way. Man, I wish that other hole was as large as this one. That would have made life so much easier. All right. All right, now we have already singed that tip. However, I think it might be sticking a little too far out. So I'm gonna cut it again, a little closer to the knot, and then I am going to singe that, and I'm also gonna lightly singe the knot to keep the knot, almost like gluing the knot, so it doesn't loosen up over time. Okay, all right, let's singe that. All right, tip is singed, and let's give the knot a little glue. Cool. All right. Cool. That should hold nicely. All right, now let's see if it worked. All right, so we're going to remove our screwdriver, like so, and then we're going to slowly wind this in and check our tension. Ooh, it feels good. Look at that. All right, let's make sure that knot is not interfering with anything. No, winds nicely. And you can even hear those paws, the dog's kicking out. Yeah, they are. Cool. All right, now the other important thing is you want to pull this all the way out and just make sure that you're not at the end of your spring. I know we're not because I just did right around 5 feet, just slightly over 5. But you don't want it maxing out. And nope, we still have plenty of spring left, so we are good. Outstanding. So we should now have a functional recoil. All right, so I looked through my stash of used fasteners that I commonly use, thinking that I had to have one of these tiny little like socket head, little teeny tiny fasteners. And these are 8-32 fine thread, and we need one more. So I do not have one. So what I'm gonna do, I rated my brand new hardware stash, and these are different. These are actually a Phillips head, and they're slightly larger. So I think this is gonna work fine. So let's try that. All right, let's line this thing back up. All right, let's put these in. Moment of truth. Let's see if this is gonna work. Okay, looks like it's going well. All right, let's just make sure. Yep, cool. Nice. Oh yeah. Perfect. All right, now let's see how that recoil feels. Although it's kind of awkward doing it up at like chest level. Yeah, wow, that compression feels really good. Okay, recoil is fixed. All right, so we have the stuff that's all wrapped up on that shaft. Pine coal makes me laugh every time. And we have the wires over here. And I guess we can do that next. That should be fairly easy. All right, so this time we have an assortment of cutting implements here, because last time we had a little trouble with this razor blade. All right, so let's check out the wire here. Hopefully the camera can see this. All right, this does not appear to be, oh, that came off easy. That does not appear to be part of the snowblower, so that's good. All right, now let's check this weird like baling twine and like mule tape and that big pine cone. Let's see, what is that? Oh, hey, pine cone came out pretty easy. Okay. Oh, this is coming out really easy. Okay. All right, that was not bad at all. All right, and as you can see, we are all clean in there. All right, so what's left? We have the fuel system. We will get to that very soon. And along with the fuel system, we're gonna have to deal with these missing fasteners. Hopefully I can dig something up that'll fit nicely into there. And this whole carb box is basically just hanging on like by a prayer. So hopefully we can get that squared away. We'll have to do an oil change. We don't need to do that yet. There is good gas inside of here. So I think next we're gonna open up the bottom end, make sure everything's good, try to figure out why this thing is moving so hard. Also, these tires are low. That could be contributing to that as well. So let's air that up while I'm thinking about it. All right, now I do not have the manual for this snowblower. However, this does say the max PSI is 24, which is really high for snowblower tires. So using the formula of 3/4 of the max inflation when you don't know what it is, that's crazy high. So I'm going to start off at 12, which is what I run in my own snowblower, and just see what that brings us, how it feels. All right, let's see. Oh, did you see that? The whole snowblower just came way up. That's crazy. All right, that is roughly 12. It does feel like I can go a little higher. Okay. That's even a little high for that. Yeah, that feels really good right there. All right, let's get that cap back on and go check the other side. All right. See how this one feels. Yeah, it feels very low. Okay. Let's see if this one does the same jump up thing. Oh, it did. Look at that. That's crazy. All right, that's about 18. Still feels like I can go a little higher. All right. Yeah, that feels good right there. All right, let's see if this thing just moves any easier forward and back before we open up the bottom end. Oh yeah, that's what it was. We had flat tires. Oh, it moves nice now. All right, very cool. All right, so when you are putting your snowblower up in the service position, you need to make sure that your fluids are not going to leak all over the place. So this oil fill cap feels like it's good, but we're going to keep an eye on it when we tip it up, make sure oil's not spilling out. And as far as the fuel tank goes, you can either use like a plastic, like a sandwich bag, or something like this, like a shopping bag. And this worked pretty well last time, so I'm going to try that again. You just need to make sure it's very tight or else it'll leak. All right, that's nice and tight. Feels like it's okay. All right, we are now up in the service position, so we're just going to check what we talked about. Oil filler feels good. There's nothing leaking out. We're good. And the fuel, yeah, we're good. We're dry. All right, we're clear to move on. How can one guy be this unlucky? I mean, seriously, do you guys see what I see right now? Look through that hole. Tell me what you see. Look down there. Tell me what you see. Yeah, that's Jay's third mouse nest of this month. I didn't even want to open it. Can we just pretend that we didn't see it? Looks like we're gonna have to bust out the gloves. This one is for Erica of the YouTube channel Married to Small Engines. All right, I really don't want to see what's inside here. We haven't taken off this last bolt yet, so we still have a chance to give up on this project and go do something else. What do you say? No? Yeah, thanks guys. Please don't be home. Please don't be home. Oh, that's not bad. Okay, I can work with that. That's a pretty sad mouse nest, honestly. We have like one acorn. Okay, maybe two. All right, maybe three. Okay, he's got a bunch of acorns, but that is not bad at all. I wish they all were that easy. Wow, that chain has like never ever been oiled. That is a really nice chain drive though. Ooh, really nice. And there's two of them. There's two chains on a Murray, no less. Wow. All right. So we're going to clean that up a little bit And then I am going to, I think I'm going to use the same stuff that we used last time. All right, let me just get you in here so you can take a look. All right, so we have that chain there. We have that chain there. Wow, that is really nice. It's a really quality setup. All right, roller wheel looks fine. Friction disc looks fine. Spring is intact. That spring is intact. And it looks like a guide. Yeah, everything looks fine down here. All right, and I wanted to check that shift linkage. All right, so keep an eye on that wheel while I work the shift linkage here. Yeah, that's working well. Huh. I think I'm still gonna lube it though. And we're definitely gonna have to lube that. But overall, this looks great down here. Belt looks old, but in good condition. That belt's fine as well. Wow, I think we got lucky on this one. All right, let's cover up that friction plate. You wanna get any lube on there. All right, we are gonna be using the white lithium grease to lube that hex shaft. And then we're going to use this DuPont chain saver for the chains. And you don't need to go overboard. You just want it to be nicely lubricated. And it's already working great, so we really don't need that much more on there. This is just for future prevention, because people don't bring their stuff in to be serviced. They neglect it. Okay. Get that side. I'm just going to take a wire brush to this just to make sure there's no loose rust here. And actually, I guess we can get this out of the way. I'll put it back on when we do the lubrication. All right, so I think we've gotten the loose rust off of there. So let's cover this back up and do a little more lubing. All right, so if you missed the last chain that we lubed on a snowblower, this is the stuff that we used and it worked really well. So it's called DuPont Chain Saver and it's a dry wax. It's a Teflon derivative and it has ceramic technology. And it's typically used on like high-end sports bikes for motorcycle chains, but I have some, so let's use it. Go. Now the cool thing about this stuff is that it actually dries completely dry. There is no fling and it's actually dry to the touch afterwards. That's why I like it so much, because in a snowblower you don't want to get any lube flying out onto this friction disc or your drive is going to slip. Let's move on to that back one. Okay. All right, that looks good. And honestly, I don't even think we need the fluid film for that rust, because kind of the overspray from the chain saver, I think it actually took care of the wheel as well. So I think that should be fine. All right, so I just want to check the engagement handles here and see how it feels. So it engages roughly halfway into its travel like it's supposed to, so that's good. Right there. Yeah, we're good. And then the brake is holding, so we're good there. All right, and let's feel the auger handle. Yeah, feels good. Roughly
a little over a third of the way through its travel, it comes in contact with the roller. Yeah, I think we're in good. I don't think we have to do any adjustments on those at all. That's kind of surprising. All right, and tire pressure's holding good, so that's good. All right, that was pretty painless. Let's get this belly plate back on. All right, so I was just admiring how nice this scraper blade looks for such an older model. Then I realized that. Let me see if the thing can get you in here. Hopefully the camera can pick that up. This right here, compared to this side over here, this side is like kind of caved in that way. So it's not affecting the auger, but I don't like that it's bent. So I just want to see if we can bend it back that way just a bit. And it's not even a huge bend, it just bothers me, so. Might have actually already got it. And just a tiny bit more. Yeah, we're good. Okay. All right, so as you can see, we are out of our service position and everything looks good. So let's get that bag out of here that was sealing the fuel in. Did a good job. Yeah, fuel smells good. All right, the time has come to give this thing an oil change. Ideally, we would do that after running, but this doesn't run. And that oil looked black as ink, so let's do that. All right, so the last couple of oil changes that we did on these snowblowers with the Tecumseh engines, the pneumatic siphon did an absolutely awesome job getting all that oil out of there. So we're gonna use it again. All right, let's get this thing going. All right, looks like we're all set. All right, now my service manual says that this little 5-horse engine is supposed to take 20 ounces, 20 fluid ounces of oil. Now, doesn't make a whole lot of sense because the 7-horsepower Tecumseh engine that we just worked on recently, that only called for 19. So not sure why a smaller engine is going to require more oil, but I guess I'm gonna trust the reference material here. Let's try 20 ounces and see what happens. All right, let's see if I was right to trust it. And on these, you want to screw them in to test them. No way. All right, it's correct. It is right to the full line. Son of a gun. Okay, 20 ounces it is. And this is 5W30 synthetic, by the way. All right, now this is the carb box I was telling you about. It is supposed to have 2 screws in the front that do the heavy lifting for holding this carb box in place. Now, as you can see, that one remaining bolt that's there, it is not even really holding it on. It's kind of off to the side. So, yeah. All right, so this is also the pain in the butt kind that has the key integrated into the carb box, which means we're gonna have to struggle to get the wiring out of the back of it most likely. So let's get this choke knob out of here. And see if we can get this off to the side. Okay. Oh, it's an easy one. It looks like it's just almost like a spade connector, sort of. That is not at all like the previous ones I've been working on. Yeah, it's a rivet holding it in instead of a screw. Oh, I like this kind. Let's see if I can work that out. Hopefully the camera could see that. I don't want to break this wire. All right, so there is some secret to getting this off. You're probably supposed to pinch something, and I don't know what that is. So we're gonna go with plan B. I am gonna loosen it up from the other end of this wire. If I can get this to stay. Maybe not, okay. Oh, that's handy. It's like half of a ring terminal. That is super handy. This was designed really well. Well done, Tecumseh. I might have to retract all the smack I was talking about them recently, because that's actually a pretty cool design. All right, so we have our fuel line on this side, which overall is looking good, but someone really, A, never put the clamp back on when they apparently took the carb off last, and B, looks like they used pliers or something on the end here, so it's kind of has like road rash on it. All right, so I'm gonna see if we have enough slack. I'll trim just a little bit off the end there when we put this thing back together. For now, I'm just gonna put some clamps on here, or a clamp, just to hold that fuel back. Let's get that down there. Cool. And I don't want to make this any worse, so I'm going to try to be careful pulling this back. Oh wow, it's barely on there. What the heck? And that's how you start a fire. Guys, use a clamp. You don't want to start a fire with fuel. All right, yeah, that end of it, as you can see here, someone screwed that up. So I'm going to try to trim off the end. Not a lot of room in here though. Okay. Yeah, I think I got that nasty part off, and I think we have enough meat. Yep, we should be good. All right. All right, and then over here, we have our primer line. Runs to that primer bulb over there. There we go. And I usually like to trim off that end there, but I don't know that we have a whole lot of slack there. Actually, I might be able to do it. Yeah, let's do that now. I think we have just enough just to make sure we have a good seal in the end there. Cool. All right, fuel line is off, primer line is off. Now we gotta get these pain in the butt nuts off of here. I was trying to figure out why the throttle wasn't feeling right, and it's because somebody wrapped this up in that spring underneath there. So it wasn't, when you went to idle, and it's still not returning terribly well. It's like that spring is on there too tight. Yeah, what's up with that? Ah, okay, so there's actually different places where we can put that spring on this arm here. So I'm thinking we can go down a little bit, and that'll take some of the pressure off of that. It's really hard getting in here. Trying to figure out if there's two gaskets on here. Looks almost like there might be, but yeah, there are. There's two gaskets for some reason. But you know what? They're both in really good condition, so I'm not going to complain. All right, so currently it is on the bottom position on that shaft. And that spring is just working a little too hard. But that's also the governor control, so we can't really mess with that too much. It won't go down to idle in its current state. All right, so it's currently in the third one down. All right, we'll have to check it after. All right, so it is carburetor cleaning time. And I have just noticed that this is in fact an aftermarket. So yeah, that might be why it was not running. Hopefully we're able to clean this thing up. I do not stock 5 horsepower Tecumseh carburetors, so let's hope we can fix this. It does look clean, like someone may have just recently attempted to replace it. So not sure how successful we're gonna be. Okay, yeah, those are both in great condition. There's a lot of sediment and gunk on the bottom there. I'm gonna put that bowl in the ultrasonic to hang out for now. And that should have the removable emulsion tube. We'll verify that in a moment. Oh, it seems like it's okay. Let's spray a little carb cleaner through there. And it should spray out right there. Yeah, looks good. Get that pin out. Yeah, this is looking very clean inside, and this part of it anyway. And that needle, yeah, it looks good. Cool. This one actually has neoprene on it though, so I'm not going to put that through the ultrasonic. All right, and let's see if we can push down. Oh, actually it looks like it's a brass one. That's weird. In this vintage, they were brass. However, I figured the aftermarket would have been the plastic ones that are removable. So I'm thinking this is not going to come down. Yeah, it is coming out because it's the aftermarket one. I'm just using a pick to try to push down that emulsion tube. It's not easily going down though. All right, cool. Yeah, see on the actual Tecumseh ones, when they're metal like this, the brass, they are not removable. So the other thing I want to point out is this has one O-ring here. There's supposed to be another O-ring there, which is most likely, yeah, if you look up there, it's still stuck up in there. So let's see if we can fish that out. This is a Tecumseh carburetor tool. It has like a little crochet hook that's handy for that. There she blows. That's our missing O-ring. The other thing is, with a regular Tecumseh carburetor, there would be a neoprene seat right here. However, I don't see one, so it looks like they are just using the neoprene on this instead, which is perfectly fine, but the Tecumseh ones are normally just metal here instead of the neoprene, and then they sit in a neoprene seat. So as long as they have it in one spot, then it should seal fine. All right, but as you can see, this looks clean on this end, so. All right, so the things that we need to go over. This is the low speed / mixer, and it has a cap on it that can be removed if you need to. However, I'm not seeing anything up here that's telling us we need to remove that. And I'm gonna leave it at the factory settings. Worst case scenario, we can always actually remove it when it's on the actual machine later. So let's just throw a little carb cleaner through the middle of this thing. All right, and on this side where it has the throttle plate, you'll notice there's 3 little holes right there on the side of the throat. And it's helpful to just spray backwards through there. It's hard to get into, but it's the equivalent of like an idle circuit basically. And normally you can't get the angle to poke anything in there, but if you're able to, then that's always good too. Oh, I did get in that one. And that one, wow. I'm stuck now though. And let's see if I can get that last one. I can't really see. There. Okay, ooh, bent that though. Okay. All right, so that's pretty much it for what we can do. The rest of it is pretty much just letting the ultrasonic do the work. So let's do that. Oh, I forgot the emulsion tube. So let's get that other O-ring off. And actually there's only one hole there and that goes all the way through. Nothing else, and it's clear. And that is wide open. So yeah, we don't need to clean that by hand. We'll just throw that in the ultrasonic as well. All right, so if you watch my videos, you know what's coming next. We throw in some of the mean green. I like to do 80% water, roughly 20% mean green. This stuff works absolutely awesome, and it's only $6 a gallon at Walmart. All right, we'll toss the float in just to let it do its bouncing around. Although it seems like it's sitting a little lower. Let's just make sure this isn't leaking. All right, no, there's no fluid in it. It just seemed like it was sitting lower than usual, which is funky. All right, so as usual, we're gonna do 60 degrees Celsius, which works out to be roughly 140 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna put it in for 10 minutes, and here we go. All right, so the carb itself was already in a pretty decent shape, but that is still clean. As usual, the brackets that came along with it, these never get looking any better because they're basically just a little bit of oxidation and rust on them that, you know, an ultrasonic can't do anything about that. And the funny part is that little cap that I told you about, it actually vibrated off while it was in the ultrasonic, so that's what it looks like underneath there. And I want to say this one might be a fixed jet rather than a needle. Let me just check. Yeah, that's a fixed jet on this one. And I want to say in this vintage, the original Tecumseh ones were actually adjustable needles. So, all right, so we might as well leave that cap off. It's not really serving any purpose. All right, and I want to do something now before I forget, because I always do forget. And you guys never remind me, except for my buddy Hank. He actually did remind me. We did a live stream recently. So this right here, that is that, it's basically a vent that equalizes the pressure down from the bowl so that you don't have fuel overflowing everywhere. Okay, and that feels good. But it's always good to check that. And I don't know if you can see it in here. It's that tiny little hole. The easiest way is find that Welch plug, and then right over to the right of it is where that hole is. All right, so let's get these O-rings back on our emulsion tube. Like so. And we can get that back up inside. Just a little bit of oil helps these things slide in. All right, it feels like it's seated well. And you can double check by looking into the throat. I don't think the camera will pick it up, but you can see that tube is sticking up inside the emulsion tube. And let's get this back in. This just hangs right in there like that. All right, then we get our pin back in. Just like that. Perfect. And then you just want to check your float height. You want it roughly parallel to the body of the carb. This one looks slightly high. All right, let's just see if it'll hold back air here. Yeah, I don't hear any air leaking out, so I think we're going to be good. I'm not super loving that height, though. I'm just going to bend that tab down just a little bit. Although being that it's an aftermarket, I probably shouldn't mess with it. It's probably the way they want it. All right, so that little tab inside there that we hung that needle on, I actually bent it up a little bit. So it's more in line with being level with the body of the carb. I don't dare go any further than that, and it still is functional, so I guess I'm gonna leave well enough alone at this point. All right, I'm putting this back on. You want that half circle to line up with that half circle, just like that. And we want that little gasket on there, like that. And then we want our main jet. On most carbs, this would act just as a pickup bolt, but on this carb, this is actually serving as the main jet. So, all right, one reassemble aftermarket Tecumseh carburetor. All right, so while we were waiting for the ultrasonic to do its thing, I got a little bored. So I finished up the rest of the lubrication that we hadn't gotten to yet, and I also did a little bit of light cleaning as well. So now at this point, all we have really left to do is to take care of the fuel system, which is basically just reattaching the carburetor, figuring out what's going on with the idle setting here on the throttle control. Also this here, we have that weird wire thing going on the handles, so gotta take care of that. I'm thinking maybe just a cotter pin will work there. Hopefully it doesn't need a push nut, because I don't believe I have one that'll fit that. And it does have a hole in it as well, so I don't think it's set up for a push nut. All right, get the carb line back up. Let's just get these nuts back on. All right, fuel line's back on. Now let's get this clamp in place. Now that we have a clamp. Okay. Now let me just share with you what I'm seeing here with this throttle control / idle setting that's a little different. I'm not sure if it's working as intended or if it's going to need to be tweaked in order to get idle to work properly. Now when you're all the way up to full throttle, that throttle plate is wide open throttle like it's supposed to be. Now the thing that I'm thinking, when you put it down to idle like that, when it's running, that governor is going to pull that back so that it is back like that up against that idle set screw. The only thing is, usually on these Tecumsehs, when they're turned off, it does go to that point. So I'm not sure if, for this specific engine, if it just needs to be running in order for the governor to pull that back to that position, or if it's this spring that attaches right there in the wrong setting perhaps. Maybe there's too much tension on that spring, but I don't want to arbitrarily move it and then mess up the governor. So I think we're gonna have to wait till we can actually do a run test to find out what is going on with that. All right, so let's get this thing put back together. We need this back in place, and in order to do that, we have to have this back on there. Now we have a little bit of good news. If you recall, I replaced all of those little self-tapping machine type screws that were inside this here on the recoil. And we then had those left over. Here's the cool part. We are missing these two, and these appear to work perfectly as substitutes. So I think we kind of lucked out there. So let's see if I am correct. Look at that. All right, let's get that other one in. Perfect. Now I might be fine just putting a cotter pin here, but I would prefer to have a small washer there, but I don't know if that's gonna move nicely. But let's see what I can find. All right, let's try this. I'm going to put a little grease on this washer to make sure that it moves nicely and plays nicely, like that. And I gotta put a cotter pin in there now. Let's see if this is large enough or if I have to grab a different one. Looks good. Okay, let's see how that works. Oh yeah, that's nice. All right, washer and cotter pin for the win. I just want to clean that up a little bit. And actually, I think I want to go one each way. So, are you a one each way guy or are you a two each way person? Maybe I should have put them both in the same size. Not a lot of room here. I guess I should have stuck with the original way. I just want it to be neat where it's not going to hang up on someone's clothing or something. Okay. We're almost there. Okay, I think that's about as neat as we're going to get this thing. Yeah, that works nicely. Cool. You know what? I think we just ran out of things to fix. I think this thing is actually ready to be tested. The only thing is, it's crazy late at night, so I think we're going to have to pick this up in the morning. So I will see you back here in the morning. All right, quick change of plans. So before we get this out and test it tomorrow morning, there are a handful of things that I would like to get taken care of first. First, while we noticed that it did say J19LM instead of the normal RJ19LM, I just assumed that was an aftermarket plug. However, this is actually a real Champion plug. At least it says the word Champion. This is just the non-resistive version, but we never checked the actual plug. So let's start by actually doing that. All right, that plug actually looks pretty good. It looks like it's been burning fairly decently too. Considering it's not running, that's pretty strange. But the plug looks good, assuming that it is genuine. So we're just gonna check the gap, and as long as the gap is good, we're gonna throw it back in. All right, we're looking for this to be 30 thousandths. And yeah, it's a tight 30, that's good. Okay. All right, and the other items I want to tack are under that carb box. So unfortunately, that needs to come back off. The first item is actually going to be that pilot jet. Ever since we realized that that's actually a jet rather than the low-speed needle that you usually find in this vintage, I'm thinking since this thing was having a run problem where it would not start, we better take a quick look at that pilot jet, which should not require taking off the whole carb. We should be able to just pop off that jet. So let's do that. Next, I spoke to my buddy Kenny of Ken's Small Engine Repair. I've linked his channel previously. You should definitely go check him out. Now, this man has 1,500 videos in his YouTube library. And I spoke with him earlier today, and he actually had worked on the exact same engine. And I had him take a look at the governor arm that we talked about earlier, just to see where that spring was positioned. And he said that in his video, it looked like it was down to around the 4th or 5th notch down. And if I remember correctly, we're way up towards the top. So I want to take a look at that spring position and see if moving that will actually make our idle work without it being running. So let's do that. All right, box is back off. And I'll bring you in for a tight look at that arm that we were talking about before, just to refresh your memory. And yeah, as you can see, it's in the 3rd position. And he said he thought it was down in the 4th or 5th. So I'm gonna try to lower that spring a little bit and just see if that will allow this throttle plate to bounce back down. See, when we let off on that, it really should return that throttle plate back to its idle position. At least most Tecumsehs I've seen will do that. So let's try that. All right, let's start with that pilot jet. All right, so let's clean that puppy up. I mean, it looks really clean, but let's just make sure it's actually not blocked at all. All right, so that went through nicely. And let's check the tip. Ooh, there was a little resistance there. Yep, no more resistance. So it's a good thing we checked that. All right, 2 items down. So let's see if we can move that spring in. If so, if it'll do anything for us. All right, let's pop that off. There we go. All right, so 3, 4, let's try 5. One, 2, 3, 4, that is 5. Yep. Hey, look at that. I also want to both lubricate this as well as recalibrate that governor while we're in here. So let's do that. Oh, much better. All right, so to adjust this governor, it should actually be a pretty easy thing to do. All you do is move it up to full throttle, which is at that full stop right there. Then you want to move that governor arm in that direction just to take up any slack that might be there after loosening this up, and then we're going to retighten it after that. So let's do that now. All right, so let's go ahead and calibrate that governor. So we're going to move this up to full throttle. We're going to make sure that stays tight right there. And then we're going to rotate this down here until it's snugly clockwise right there. So we just want to keep pressure on those 2 points while we tighten that back down. I'm sorry, you're probably not going to be able to see this from the positioning of where my fingers are. Okay, that's tight. Let's do... All right, it appears to be working well. All right, so we will find out if that worked tomorrow when we do the test. So let's just get this thing back together now. All right, I will see you in the morning. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it is now the next morning. It is time to give this thing a test. Now, unfortunately, all we have right now for snow is this really hard, crusty stuff that's really deep and very hard. It has been freezing and thawing and thawing and freezing for a couple of weeks now, and we currently are having a little bit of freezing rain. So not the greatest conditions to test a compact snowblower, but let's see what this thing can do. All right, choke is on, throttle is all the way up. Let's give it a few pumps. All right, let's see if this thing will run. Woo! Car's full. Outstanding. Auger control works. Let's try reverse. That's reverse 1. Reverse 2. Wow. 6th gear. Will it idle? Yes, it will. Okay, let's see if this thing can handle this deep, crusty snow. Here we go. It's doing it.
Wow, that was a really good test. This thing just stood up to that snow. I just want to show you the snow that this little compact snowblower with a 5 horsepower engine was clearing. This is a full 5-gallon thing of fuel. Look, it's just sitting on top of there. That's how icy and crusty and deep it was. Now, I usually do not work on Murrays because they're kind of a low-end, cheap economic type of machine that's usually not really worth my time. And granted, this thing isn't ultra, it's considered their high-end version of a Murray. But last night, I finally was able to find the information on this specific model. This was built in 1994. It is 32 years old. That's crazy. But anyway, that was a really good test. Everything is working the way that it's supposed to. The auger is working great. The drive system is working great. It started on the first pull. The full throttle is perfect right where it is. The idle does work with the changes that we made, so I'm very happy with that. And honestly, this project came together relatively effortlessly. I really thought there was going to be a lot more involved in this, but honestly, I guess they don't all have to be basket cases. So anyway, I'm going to wrap up this already long video, and I want to thank you for stopping by and hanging out with me today, and I'll see you next time.
Oh, you thought the video was over? Hey, just as a bonus, when we fired this thing up, it did run really well. However, Tecumsehs are known to kind of pop and run a little rich, especially when it's a little on the warmer side and it's a snowblower engine. However, this one was running richer than usual, and I wasn't really feeling how that old aftermarket carb was running. So I ordered a HIPAA carb replacement. I'm not sponsored by them, by the way. They did reach out, but I haven't actually contacted them. So I purchased this, and I do purchase carburetors from them on a pretty regular basis because as far as aftermarkets go, they do a good job. But anyway, I have just finished installing an aftermarket carb on this thing here, and I have not yet tried to fire it up. So let's do that and just see if this runs any better now. All right, we'll put the choke on, throttle's up, 3 prime pumps, and let's see if it'll start. First pull. And back to the old carb we go. All right, so I put the original aftermarket back on, and I just want to see how that's going to run compared to the other aftermarket that we tried using. All right, so throttle's all the way up. And since it's only been about 5 minutes since we did that test run, I'm not going to choke it or prime it for the first pull and just see how we do. Contact. All right, so yeah, it's still running rich, but it's definitely better than the replacement was. So, hey, we tried. Now the video is done. See you next time, guys.